I'm Caterina, and welcome to my studio. I'm so glad to have you back. It's been probably 2 weeks since we've been in the studio, and we went to Fort Collins, Colorado for my Naturalist Notebook show, which was awesome, by the way. We had a great time. It was so wonderful. And today in the studio we're filming my favorite mixed media backgrounds part 2. And I'm taking the very first video that we did on mixed media backgrounds and I'm expanding on those ideas to show you some actual projects that I've worked up so I can sand the layers back, show you how I painted them and the contrast. I think you're going to really like it. So we're going to start right now. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is gesso. And what I've done is I've worked up, I think, 4 projects. And 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, I counted correctly. You know how I am about counting. So I've worked up 4 projects, and I got started by gessoing the mixed media paper. And you can think of gesso as a primer. It's your very best friend in the studio next to a sanding wedge, I think, if you're doing mixed media work. Those guys go together hand in hand. So I gessoed it. And then what I did was underneath, or on top, I collaged and de-collaged, and you can see I've collaged on top of that. And if you saw the first video, that you know that by de-collage I mean you're going to actually just rip the collage off the paper. And that's what we're going to do right now. And I'm going to show you how to get to this point. And I've left this card finished because we're going to try to do sort of an end result on here. I've got some images that I'm going to use. I'm not sure which one I'm going to work on, but we'll figure it out as we go along. But first of all, let me show you the collage and the de-collage. I do it in a lot of different ways, so I'm going to try to show you those today. And the first thing is to use your gel medium and apply it liberally. And I'm working with the paper underneath here is freezer paper, and this is the shiny side up so that it doesn't stick, and so you can just take your glue right off the paper. And then we're going to collage on top of that, and I'm gonna do it this way. I did it the other way last time, and I want it to really adhere. You want to try to get the edges to the ends of the paper. And I'm going to go back and glue this piece down too. If you want a really good adhesion, which we do, we can use my trusty bone folder, which has seen many classes and been used many, many times. Get all the glue out. And then I'm going to go down here and glue this. Smear it on there. Smear, you know that's a technical art term. I use it all the time. Okay, and then I would rip back. Now, you're gonna have to bear with me because we're doing it just as we're, and I just told you that it wouldn't stick, and it just stuck there. So, that's the world of art. Okay, so what we're doing is lifting it back, and you can see hopefully that that side of the paper is sticking to, so it's actually transferring to the page. Okay, now if I had more time, I would probably let it sit a little bit longer. But what you want are lots and lots of layers. And this one is not done yet, so we're just going to rub it some more. Okay, so I know that this looks like it's really quick, but actually it's quite slow. And we can speed it up with using a hairdryer. I never use a heat gun in the studio because there's so many flammable things that we use in the studio. So if I do have to hurry, which I don't usually, I usually work on many different things at once, I would use a hair dryer. But what I wanted to share with you is that when you've ripped off one side of the paper, the other side isn't going to be good for creating that transfer look. You're going to be able to use it to just to collage, but you won't get a good transfer out of it. So you can just lay that down on the wet parts. And I love just building up the layers like this constantly. It just creates this wonderful texture. And we're just going to let this dry now. And we're going to go back to the original piece. And as you can see, I've done some painting on it. I put some titanium white golden fluid, and you want to use a fluid, something really light, so that you can see the words underneath, so that it just barely comes through, but you've edited out the parts that you don't want. And as I said, we're going to go back and do that because I really don't want to see this part at the top. And I'm going to take my sanding sponge and I'm going to sand it. And don't be afraid if part of it rips off. What you want is, you want it to be the background. It's not the focal point. Don't worry if you bury something that you absolutely really liked. There's more good bits. Trust me, there's lots and lots of wonderful bits and pieces, and you can always make good stuff too. So I'm giving it a really good sand because I really like that ethereal look, and I'm not worried about any pieces coming off. And also sanding the edges so that they're nice and clean. Don't like the messy edge. Okay, now I'm going to paint. Okay, so I am just finishing this up and painting. Just painting out some of the areas that I really don't want to see. I want to see a little bit, but not all of it. And I'm going to lift off part of it as well. So I have a wet rag here, and I'm just going to lift it. You can use a dry rag or a wet rag, whatever you prefer. I've got them here for my hands because I don't like product on my hands. I know some people don't mind having paint and product, but read the labels and then decide whether or not you want it all over you. I have great respect for the tools that I use in the studio. So we're going to rip this back now, see what we've got in the wet one. And that came out great. And I really love the stripe here on the side. I think we'll use that as the top now. So we're going to let that dry a little bit more and come back to this piece. And this piece we're going to finish embellishing it. I quite like that. This is a piece of tissue paper that I've treated, and I'm going to show you how to do this in future videos. And it's in Italian. It says, "From the center of my being there came a great fountain." So I just wrote on that today, so I kind of like that there. And I was thinking about the bird in the center here. So I think we're going to glue some elements down just so you can see. And again, we're working on a grid. We've divided the substrate up into three different pieces, the top, the center, and the bottom. And now we're going to divide it again. This antique piece of paper that just ripped. Just slightly off center. I don't want it right in the middle. Create a little more interest. It's okay if it's bent. These are bowerbirds, and I just thought they were so cool. I love bowerbirds. You know, they're collectors, so I think I like the one with the nest. What do you think? I think we'll do the nest. I have this one too. I kind of quite like that one. No, I'm going to do the nest. And we're going to put this down. Right about there. And we're going to stick this in here underneath. Just so part of it's showing. get that one off because it's been plasticized. Okay, now I would go back and I will put some gel medium back on this because it's got to be covered. Since it's an antique piece, you want to keep it as long as possible, so it's got to be covered with something that's more archival. Okay, and then the last thing I would do is let it dry and then maybe come back and we'll use some paint and some glazing medium on that. Okay, so that's collage and decollage. Working with molding paste, and the first thing that we're going to do is to glue and collage our paper. Now, I want to show you what it looked like, what the piece looked like. I hope you can see this. So it has a really rough texture, and that's from the molding paste. However, I mixed the molding paste with Titan Buff, so it gave it a really nice raised texture. It's really lovely. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really simple. And I'm using antique paper, so I'm just going ever so slightly because I want as much of the paper on here as possible. Okay. And, no, it's not ready yet. So we're just going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to show you how I did this with the molding paste. I simply dipped my brush into it and put it on, and then just drop some paint onto it. Now you can mix it up, you know, in larger batches, which is what I do for a canvas, but when you're working this small, you really don't need to do that. So you can create this wonderful kind of edging. I hope you can see what it looks like. And make it as thick as you want to. Molding paste is just pretty fabulous. You can also use it with stencils, but it's particularly cool for mixed media pieces. And then what I would do is go back with an image and pop an image in there. And just, you know, this really antique old image. And just pop it in here, maybe put another embellishment, maybe a little bit of tissue paper down. Just like that. And then glue it in. Oops. Okay. Curses. There we go. That's better. Okay. So, and then I would just sand that off. Now you can use an element like this, as small as this is, to put it on a different piece. So you can mount it up, down. See, I'm trying to figure out where the camera is. In the last video, I talked about using a piece of plastic wrap to create texture, and I wanted to show you how I would use that in a piece. So I used mixed media paper again, and that's what I've been using throughout. I've got one more piece to show you that will be on a board. So I gessoed the mixed media paper, and then I used antique paper for the background. And then I used the plastic to create this effect at the bottom. I wanted something kind of misty looking. I'm going to go over this with white. And then the other technique, using tissue paper, actually it's not tissue, it's actually handmade paper. And you can buy it in larger sheets. It's not exactly rice paper, but it's very see-through. I don't know if you can see my hand through there, but it's very see-through. It comes in different colors. You want to look in places that carry handmade papers. I have to see it and touch it to know if it's going to do this. but it tears apart really easily, and you can just glue it down in pieces to create this wonderful ethereal effect. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Just glue it down and stick it. I just love the texture. Now you can get it in different colors. You can go back and paint this. Now I'm not going to do that because I wanted it to look really kind of misty. I created a little butterfly for you to put on here. And so there. Alright, so rather than going over everything and collaging again, because you've already seen how to do that, I wanted to show you this technique, and then the plastic, which I showed you last time, but I'm going to show you again. And this is just from a baggie. I just cut the baggie off and then just used it to kind of march across the page like that. And creates a wonderful texture, almost like a Rorschach, you know, an ink blot. But I just think it's really, really cool and really fun to use it. And now to finish this off, first of all, I would sand it to make sure my edges are all nice and straight, clean. Give everything a little chance to dry. So I have a butterfly in tissue paper. I hope you can see that. And we're going to mount this somehow. I'm not quite sure yet. Maybe we'll do this. This is just an antique piece of paper. And we'll create a ground. Then put the butterfly there. And then I quite like this, so I was thinking I would cut that. So we're going to do that. Okay, so I just made a big mess on my brush, and I've got to clean that off, and cleaned off my fingers. Starting over, got the ground in, and then I'm going to glue the tissue paper butterfly down. Actually, first I need to cut this out. I meant to do this earlier, but other things got in my way. I'm going to keep some of the writing on there because I think it's kind of cool looking. And then I would simply put the butterfly down here. And I can't use that brush, it's way too big. So we're going to use a different brush. Okay. So I'm not a calculated artist. It takes me a while. I go by my intuition. I pick out images that I like, and actually the backgrounds are what does it for me, because as I'm working, the background really tells me, you know, where this piece wants to go, and I just kind of get this whole story that comes to me. So it's kind of hard for me to have things planned out. So today we've taken a lot of time to come back and forth to work and then create, so that you had something to look at, some kind of finished product, to see how it all comes together, because I know that you're interested in knowing how the process works. So now I'm going to show you how to make these tissue paper butterflies and dragonflies in another video, but I'm still perfecting it, so we're not ready to get there quite yet, but we will be soon. Just working still some bugs out of it. So okay, now one last thing. I wanted to create a little bit of a mist at the bottom so that it wasn't quite so dark. So I'm going to use a little Titan buff and come back here and just kind of go over with my brush so that it looks a little more misty. You still have the black effect, but I think I rather like that. Okay, that gives you a good idea. Sorry, I keep putting it up too high. Anyway, okay, next one is working with tissue papers. So on this piece I'm working on a board, and I've already collaged the top. As you can see, I did a collage and de-collage, and I also painted it with a little bit of Titan Buff, and then I went back and I re-collaged and glued and de-collaged. So I ran the paper this way at the top, and I'm going to run it this way at the bottom, just to show you how I did this. Now in the center you can see the tissue paper, and that is the same tissue paper treatment that I talked about in the last video. So I created this band, and working on a grid again, created the band so that we're breaking the canvas up into pieces. And I wanted to glue this down and just leave this down rather than taking it off. And so I'm just going to sand the edges. And don't worry if it lifts up, you can just glue it back down. That's one of my favorite things to do in the studio, is to sand back the layers. Okay, so that's coming off nicely. We're just going to leave that like that. And I'm going to sand this back. Okay, now I think I'm going to use a little bit of glazing medium on this in the bottom with some white paint. You don't need a whole lot of glazing medium, just a little bit. I'm going to mix them right on. And as I said, if I'm working on a larger piece, I would just use it on a palette. But since it's a small piece, now I didn't do this at the top. At the top, I just wanted to sort of hide it. All the words. I kind of wanted to hide the words. I'm going to just lightly brush it on here. Now you can see the effect of that, which I just absolutely love. I think it's just yummy. Okay. And I had this image of the dragonfly, so I thought I might tear that out. And I would apply that in the center like this as it's rising. So that's how I would finish it. Just glue it down. I might put another element in here, but just to give you the idea of what I thought it might look like. Something like that. Okay. There you go. Oops, sorry, did it again. Well, I hope you enjoyed our segment on my favorite mixed media backgrounds part 2. And next time we're going to be doing a project-oriented segment, and it will be based on the summer issue 2015 of my my flower collages. And I hope you can see it. Up, down, right about there. So we're going to be doing that next time. We'll show you how to do it. It'll be a little bit of stitching, a little bit of collage, and we're going to have great fun. So see you then. Ciao for now.